Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
President Donald Trump recently made a very important statement about the country of Iran. He announced a time limit, giving Iran only 2 weeks to make a crucial decision. This decision is about how to deal with Iran's nuclear program. President Trump said he wants to open a way for diplomacy. He hopes Iran will agree to last-minute peace talks to stop its nuclear work completely. The United States wants Iran to remove its ability to build a nuclear weapon. President Trump stated that a peaceful solution is his first choice. However, he also made it clear that if Iran does not agree to negotiate and stop its nuclear activities, the United States is ready to use its military power. This means Iran faces a critical choice between talking for peace or facing the risk of a devastating war. The situation in the Middle East is already very tense. Before this announcement, there were recent clashes between Israel and Iran. They exchanged attacks which made the region unstable and dangerous. President Trump's 2-week deadline comes at a difficult time. Countries all over the world are watching this situation with great concern. They are worried about what might happen in the next 14 days. A countdown has begun. The decision made by Iran and the final choice President Trump makes could deeply change the Middle East region and have effects around the globe. It is a period filled with both hope for a peaceful outcome and fear of a wider conflict. The world is waiting anxiously to see if diplomacy will work in this short time or if tensions will lead to war. 2. The big problem. The main problem was Iran's nuclear program. For some time, Iran had been developing its nuclear technology. It was getting bigger and more advanced year after year. Many countries, especially the United States and its allies, were very worried. They feared that Iran was trying to build a nuclear weapon in secret. Having a nuclear weapon would give Iran a lot of power in the Middle East and create great danger for others. Because of these fears, the United States government had very strong demands for Iran. President Trump's administration stated clearly what it wanted. First, it wanted Iran to stop making nuclear material completely. This material is called enriched uranium. Making enriched uranium is a key step to building a bomb. The U.S. wanted Iran to halt this work entirely. Second, the U.S. demanded that Iran get rid of all the equipment and knowledge it had that could be used to build a nuclear weapon. They wanted Iran's ability to make a bomb to be totally gone or dismantled. But Iran saw the situation very differently. Iran said its nuclear program was only for peaceful purposes. They said they needed nuclear power to make electricity for their cities and homes. They also said they used nuclear technology for medicine and science. Iran insisted that it had a right, like other countries, to use nuclear energy for these good reasons. They stated they were not trying to build a bomb, and they would not agree to stop their peaceful nuclear work just because the U.S. demanded it. This difficult situation became much more dangerous recently. There were military attacks between Israel and Iran. Israel launched attacks on some specific places inside Iran. These attacks included locations where Iran was working on its nuclear program. These actions by Israel made the already high tension much, much higher. They showed that the possibility of a real war was very close. This big and dangerous problem, Iran's growing nuclear program, the strong demands from the U.S., Iran's firm refusal, and the recent military actions, was the critical issue. It was the central challenge President Trump had to face. His decision within the 2-week time limit was directly about this nuclear issue. Would he find a way to stop Iran's nuclear program through talks, or would the failure to solve this problem lead to war? This problem was the heart of the crisis. 3. Iran says no. President Donald Trump gave Iran a time limit. He said Iran had 2 weeks to agree to talks about its nuclear program. If not, he might use the military. But Iran quickly said no to this idea. Iran's main leader is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He gave a strong answer. He said the Iranian nation would not surrender. He said Iran would not give in to pressure from the United States or from Israel. He also warned that any attack on Iran would be bad for the country that attacks. Important people in Iran's government also spoke. The Speaker of the Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf, said Trump's 2 weeks was not a real offer for peace. He called it a way to start a war. He said Trump wanted to force peace by threatening violence. The spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry, Nasser Kanani, also spoke. He said Iran was only interested in one thing: bringing back the nuclear deal from 2015. This deal is called the JCPOA. Iran did not want a new deal or just a small part of the old one. They wanted the full deal back. Iranian officials were clear about their conditions for talking. First, America must fully return to the JCPOA. Second, Iran would not talk while under attack. They said Israel's bombing campaign must stop. They also said the U.S. was not trying to stop its friend Israel. They said Iran had already talked indirectly with the U.S. in Oman. But Iran refused to make small, temporary deals outside the JCPOA. Senior diplomat Abbas Araghchi said Iran had only fought back against Israel. He said Iran was still open to talking, but it would also protect itself. Secretly, Iranian officials told other countries they would not stop making enriched uranium. This is key to their nuclear program. They said they would not let Trump make them destroy their nuclear ability. So Iran's answer was strong. They did not want Trump's two-week deal. They said they would not stop their nuclear program or talk because of threats. They thought the deadline was a bad plan to make them agree to difficult things. They said they would continue enriching uranium and developing missiles. They would not negotiate under pressure. This showed that finding a simple way forward would be very hard. 4. Why now? President Trump announced his two-week deadline now because of the difficult situation in the Middle East. The main reason was the increasing conflict, sometimes called a shadow war, between Israel and Iran. Iran attacked Israel with drones and missiles. Israel then attacked places inside Iran, including important nuclear sites. This made the situation very dangerous and put the whole region at risk. Israel's leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, strongly asked the United States for help and support. This created a lot of pressure on President Trump. He had to decide how the U.S. should act in this growing fight. The world was watching to see what America would do. Inside the U.S., people had different ideas. Some people, known as hawks, wanted the U.S. to use military force against Iran right away. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican who talks to President Trump, is one of these people. He said President Trump should help Israel destroy Iran's nuclear program, especially the hardest places to reach deep underground. But other advisors were more careful. Some warned that attacking Iran could start a very long and difficult war that would hurt many people. People in the oil industry also worried about the effects on oil prices and supplies around the world if there was a conflict. President Trump had to consider these different voices and pressures. He wanted to appear strong and decisive, which is important for many of his supporters who believe in tough action against enemies. At the same time, he needed to consider the wishes of U.S. allies in Europe and avoid a full-scale war if possible. European countries like Germany, France, and the United Kingdom were very worried about a big war in the Middle East. They strongly pushed for diplomacy and talks to prevent the conflict from spreading. They urged President Trump to use talking, not fighting. Saudi Arabia was also concerned about a war in the region. They quietly sent a message to Iran saying they should take the U.S. offer seriously because time was short and Israel might attack. This showed how worried many countries were. The two-week deadline seemed like a way for President Trump to handle these different pressures. It showed that military action was still possible, which satisfied the hawks and showed strength to Iran. But it also opened a small chance for diplomacy, for talks, which U.S. allies wanted. Sending U.S. warships and missiles to the region also showed military readiness. President Trump wanted to appear in control during a difficult and dangerous time. Some people in the U.S. were not sure if President Trump's offer for talks was real. They remembered other times he used deadlines that didn't lead to much action. But others thought that by offering talks, he could get support from international partners who wanted peace, while still looking tough to his base at home. So the decision to announce the deadline now was a complex move. It was a reaction to the dangerous conflict between Israel and Iran getting worse. It was also a way to balance different ideas and pressures from inside the U.S. and from other countries. It was a strategy to buy time and keep different options open in a very risky situation, trying to find a path between war and talks. 5. World worries. Countries around the world heard President Donald Trump's words. They all watched the situation with Iran. Different countries had different ideas about what should happen next. Israel spoke clearly. They strongly supported the United States taking tough action against Iran, maybe even military action. Israel believed this was necessary to stop Iran's nuclear program. But key countries in Europe felt differently. Germany, France, and the United Kingdom were very worried. They did not want a war. They quickly asked for talks. They wanted to find a peaceful way to stop the crisis. They hoped for diplomacy to prevent a bigger fight in the region. Saudi Arabia also watched carefully. They worried about a war in the Middle East. A war could be very bad for them. But they were also very worried about Iran having nuclear weapons. They did not want that. Saudi Arabia wanted Iran and the U.S. to talk. They sent messages saying time was short. Russia and China also gave their opinions. They both asked for calm. They did not want fighting. They supported returning to talks. They wanted everyone to be careful and not make things worse. Many other countries, like Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and India, also said they wanted peace. They asked all sides to talk and stop the danger. The world saw the 2-week time limit. Some countries supported strong steps. Others strongly pushed for talking. Everyone felt the worry about what could happen next if talks did not work. 6. A look back. The story of the Iran nuclear issue is long and complex. To understand the current situation, it is important to look back at history. In 2015, Iran and 6 world powers reached a significant agreement. These powers included the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, China, and Germany. This deal was formally known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. The main goal of the JCPOA was to ensure that Iran's nuclear program was peaceful. Under the agreement, Iran accepted strict limits on its nuclear activities. For example, it agreed to reduce the number of machines used to make uranium richer and to keep only a small amount of enriched uranium. International inspectors from the IAEA were allowed to visit Iran's nuclear sites often to check that Iran was following the rules. In return for these limits, many economic sanctions against Iran were lifted by the other countries. Supporters of the deal believed it prevented Iran from quickly building a nuclear weapon. However, some countries, like Israel and Saudi Arabia, worried that the deal did not go far enough and only delayed Iran's nuclear goals. A major change happened in 2018. President Donald Trump announced that the United States would leave the JCPOA. He believed it was a bad deal for the U.S. After withdrawing, the U.S. put many strong economic sanctions back on Iran. European countries involved in the deal tried to keep it alive, hoping Iran would still follow the rules. Initially, Iran said it would try to keep its promises, but this did not last long. Starting in late 2019, Iran began to slowly reduce its compliance with the agreement. It increased its production of enriched uranium and started using more advanced machines. International inspectors reported that Iran was enriching uranium to levels much higher than the limit set in the JCPOA. By early 2023, Iran was enriching uranium to levels near 60%, far above the 3.67% allowed by the deal. This meant Iran's nuclear program grew much faster after the U.S. left the deal. When President Joe Biden took office in 2021, his government said the U.S. was ready to rejoin the JCPOA. But this was possible only if Iran returned to full compliance with the deal's rules. Talks started again, mainly in Vienna, to try and bring both sides back to the agreement. These discussions were very difficult. Iran demanded that the U.S. lift all sanctions immediately before Iran would fully comply. The U.S. and European partners insisted that Iran must first reverse its nuclear steps taken since 2018. Despite many rounds of talks in 2021 and 2022, no breakthrough was achieved. Discussions stalled. By 2023 and 2024, attempts to revive the deal had mostly stopped. Iran continued to develop its nuclear abilities. By June 2025, the historical Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was effectively not working. Many sanctions were still in place, and Iran's nuclear program had advanced significantly beyond the limits it had agreed to 10 years earlier. The history shows a path from agreement to breakdown and then failed attempts to repair it, leading to the difficult situation seen today. 7. What experts think. Many people who know a lot about countries and world problems, like former government workers and thinkers, are sharing their ideas about this difficult situation. They have different opinions. Some of these experts are not sure if President Trump's 2-week time limit for talks is a real offer. They think it might be a way to put pressure on Iran, or maybe just a way to get attention. They remember that President Trump has used time limits like this before on other issues, and things did not always happen by that exact time. But many experts give strong warnings about what could happen if the U.S. uses military force against Iran. They say that bombing Iran could have very bad results. They worry that military strikes might not completely stop Iran's nuclear program for a long time. Even if some sites are bombed, Iran still has the knowledge and people to maybe build things again later. Experts warn that military action could even make Iran more determined to try and get nuclear weapons, thinking they need them to be safe. Some experts say that military strikes are easier to start than to finish. They worry that a small attack could quickly become a much bigger conflict. Another big point from experts is how hard it will be to make a new agreement, even if talks happen. Iran says they want to keep making nuclear fuel for peaceful energy. The U.S. wants Iran to stop enriching uranium completely. Experts see this difference as a very big problem that is hard to fix. Experts also think about the wider effects of a war. They are worried about how it could change the price of oil around the world, which could hurt many countries' economies. They also worry a lot about the people living in the region. War can cause great suffering for normal families and civilians. Experts hope that leaders will think hard about these dangers for people before making a decision. So, the ideas from these experts show that the path ahead is full of dangers and difficult choices. They highlight the many problems with using force and the big challenges in finding a peaceful way out of this crisis. 8. What happens next? The 2-week time limit given by President Donald Trump for a decision about Iran's nuclear program is now nearing its end. This moment is critical, and people across the world are watching closely to see what step comes next. Plans for important discussions are moving forward. Iran's foreign minister is expected to meet with officials from European countries in Geneva. This meeting is seen as a way to understand if Iran is truly ready for serious talks about its nuclear activities. It is a test to see the situation before President Trump makes a final decision. The United States government is in contact with its European friends about how these talks go. President Trump faces a very hard choice in the coming days, around the start of July. He has to decide whether to keep trying hard to find a solution through talking with Iran, or if he will give the order for military action. It is also possible he could choose to give a little more time for the talks. Any path chosen has significant risks and could affect many countries far away. If they try more diplomacy, reaching a deal is very difficult. The United States wants Iran to stop making nuclear material fully and remove anything that could be used for weapons. Iran insists on its right to peaceful nuclear technology and wants the old 2015 agreement to be followed again by America. Finding a way that satisfies both sides seems very challenging. If President Trump decides to use military force, it could easily lead to a much bigger conflict in the Middle East. The U.S. military has plans to attack important sites in Iran, including places built deep underground that are hard to reach. But Iran has warned it will react strongly against American forces in the area and against Israel. Such attacks could target military bases, or they could stop ships that carry oil through important sea passages. Experts in foreign policy are very worried about the scale of fighting that could start and the harm it could cause to many innocent people. Some experts also believe that bombing key sites might only slow down Iran's nuclear work for a short time and could make Iran want to get nuclear weapons even more strongly in the future. For now, there is a fragile hope that talking might still lead to a peaceful result. The next few days before the deadline are extremely important. The world is waiting anxiously to see if diplomacy can succeed or if the situation will become much worse. What outcome do you think is most likely as the deadline arrives? More talks or military action?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.